What's up, people? There we go. Posted that. Fantastic. Hit retro rewind. Let's go. I wonder what vehicle character combo do I want to do today? Jeez. I think therefore I am. Many such cases. I don't know. I did Flame Runner all day last time, or all the whole stream last time was me driving on the Flame Runner. I might turn into the Mach Bike Strongest Warrior again today. But I'm also tempted to do some other vehicles. Maybe I'll do, maybe I could do Dolphin Dasher. That might be cool. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see right now, in fact. Let me make sure I have this open. Let's see. Let me look up one of the things I wanted to... Here we go. Al Jazeera. What else? Got it. Yeah. Okay. Who do I go with? You know what? Mario Mach Bike. The classic. The classic. Alright. See if I can't find this. Okay, here we go. Oh, fuck you, CBS. You know what? I'll go with CBS just so I can say fuck you to them even harder. But before I get started on that, oh goodness, oh my god, I'm tired. And well, you know what? Maybe I should avail myself of the opportunity to go over here. That off. There we go. Better. I don't know how much you guys could hear that. It wasn't so much a concern of hearing it as it was feeling it. Because it's actually quite a bit cooler today than it was yesterday or the day before. I don't need that fan anymore. At least for the time being, I definitely don't. Ah, look who we go. While I'm watching this, while I am waiting for the next race to commence, I would like to say, Bro the Boss 123. Thank you very much for the follow. Sometimes people follow when I'm not streaming, and I do shout out those people. Usually at the beginning of the next stream. So thank you. Glad to have new people watching the live stream. Race is finished up. Whew. Let's get into it. Let's do it. Mario Mach Bike is quickly becoming one of my favorite character vehicle combos. Ooh. There we go. Snowland, Boo Lake. Oh, I like that. I like Boo Lake. That's for damn sure. You open this. Here. Yeah. I don't know if this has the quote there. Okay. Oh, this is the old school Cocoa Mountain. Okay. The guy's got 2 pretzels in his name. This here. I think that was good usage of that. Oh, man. Ow. Well, I guess the margins for error is not particularly big on this track because the road is pretty narrow. Alright, give me that. Oh, baby. I know where I want to use this, I think. And that is, well, I'm going to go over this ramp, and then I'll start using it. I'm out of that guy's way. And get me around this turn. Yep. Cool. Green shell. Coming. Ah, poor bastard. Yoshi. I spammed that without realizing what it was. I was trying to make the item roulette just go faster, but it didn't happen that way. You know what? That works out. Yeah. Get on out of the way. DK? Okay with third here. Ow. Oh, that's good. That's how you get the good lightning. Alright, neato. Good shit. Let's get started on the items today. Things might be a little bit slower paced, but there's a couple big things to talk about. First off, Israel has invaded the West Bank. And I mean properly invaded. We've I think this could have been guessed, I suppose. I wouldn't I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that this would have happened, I guess, but it only makes sense because Israel has been, using their military in the Gaza Strip. They've been sniping kids and bombing schools and hospitals and refugee camps and whatever. They name a bad thing that you can do to an ethnic group of people as an ethno-state. And Israel is doing that, either in Gaza or in the prisons in Israel. Like, if you can think of a horrible fate, Palestinians are suffering that fate at the hands of the Israeli military and the Israeli government. But now they've decided that Gaza isn't enough. They've invaded the West Bank as well. They've rolled tanks and bulldozers, I think I saw footage of, into the West Bank, as well as, the IDF marching in as well. And, And I feel like everybody knows where this is going to lead. This is the settler colonial violence amped up to 11. Obviously, people are going to lose their homes. That's not a bug, that's a feature. But what's even worse is the manner in which they're going to lose their homes. It's going to be a lot quicker than it used to be. It's going to be a lot more deadly than it used to be. And this is the consequence of the U.S. not putting Israel on a goddamn leash. We've made it known that we are perfectly okay with Israel engaging in bad behavior, because I don't know. I guess they're an American aligned wedge against Iran for all the fucking good they're doing on that front, right? Like, they're not good for American interests in the Middle East. All they've done is foment instability and make Iran look reasonable by comparison. Iran and other states in the region, by all metrics, have been much more rational with their actions than Israel has. But look, I don't want to get in the weeds too far. The point is just that, like, this is yet another step of the genocide, of like committing a genocide in this sort of manner, in this context, that is only happening because the United States allowed it to happen, because Israel is fucking insane. And the U.S. isn't willing to put them on a leash like they deserve, because they can't go 5 minutes without murking a Palestinian infant. Yes. Let's see. Yoshi. That was just me trying to take the shortest path to victory, and not necessarily looking to squish them specifically. I just wanted to cut across a tiny bit of off-road. Let's see what Al Jazeera has to say about the invasion. They're calling it a major raid, but this is also, I think this is identical language that the New York Times used. And the New York Times is like infamous for using the passive voice, both in terms of police brutality and in terms of Israel committing atrocities in Gaza or in the West Bank, whatever it is. Israeli military deploys hundreds of soldiers backed by jets and drones, targeting 3 areas simultaneously. Large-scale ground and air attack on the northern part of the occupied West Bank, according to health officials in the territory. Guys, remember, there is no Hamas in the West Bank. The entire pretext, I know it's long gone at this point, but 10 months ago, actually almost 11 months at this point, the entire pretext of invading Gaza from Israel's end was retribution for the Hamas attacks that occurred on October 7th. Hamas only operates in Gaza. There is no Hamas in the West Bank. This is nakedly about genociding Palestinian people. This is not about terrorism or any shit like that. All of the pretense has long since fallen away. Why not, right? Again, like I mentioned, Israel is willing to engage in this sort of genocidal behavior because the United States is perfectly willing to let them, the U.S. being the largest benefactor of Israel. There are some groups of youngsters in the West Bank who are auto-claiming Hamas affiliation, but are not armed, supplied, nor coordinating with leadership in Gaza or elsewhere. Okay, yeah, thank you for the info. In Jenin, gotcha. But yeah, like Hamas at the outset of this, and even right now, Hamas has no real presence in the West Bank. Like you said, it's some unarmed teenagers with sympathies for them, which, you know, I assure you in Palestine, that is not common given the kind of, you know, political circumstances over there. Also, welcome back, woke CIA drone pilot. We're gonna get third? Yes. I've already seen in the wake of this this attack, they've got some light weapons. I meant armed by. Oh, okay, gotcha. So there are some young militants who are claiming to be Hamas, but they're not like affiliated. Gotcha. Yeah. I've already seen, in connection to the Israeli ground invasion in the West Bank, I've already seen footage of like literal black shirts going up to like random Palestinian families and saying, "Get out! This is my home now." Like literally, some of the most, how do I put this? Have you guys seen Shawshank Redemption? You'll see where I'm going with this in a minute. You know how those men in Shawshank, the sisters, talked to the victims they were about to rape. Um, these black shirt fucks who were going in and forcibly evicting Palestinians out of their homes were talking to them like that in a certain way, you know, doing the sort of tough guy chest puffing while saying things like "you're my bitch" and then doing the kissy kissy noise. Like absolutely disgusting stuff. And like I said, again, I'll say this as many times as I need to for, you know, for people to hear it and for it to sink in. The only reason that Israel does this is because they know that the only country that has the power to hold them accountable directly is the United States, and the United States is not going to do that. Why? Because the United States has a weirdly, like, irrational commitment to maintaining the state of Israel in the Middle East. There are way better allies that we could have. I don't know why the US still does this. Apart from, like, I don't know, being stuck in the 20th century, maybe? That's, like, the best explanation I can come up with for why the US continually supports Israel is, number one, you know, racism against Arabs. It's been known to happen. And then number two, because, like, the United States still thinks that this is the 20th century and that we're fighting the Cold War. Like, motherfucker, the Cold War is over. When that shit ended, that shit ended. It's not like, oh, we have to fight somebody else, you know, find somebody else to have a Cold War with. No, Cold Wars aren't a thing anymore. Everybody's in a Cold War with everybody all the time, which is what makes that meaningless. Like, that's just how geopolitics works. But yeah, there's already been some pretty disturbing footage from the Israeli invasion of the West Bank. And the obviously the humanitarian, like international humanitarian groups and human rights orgs are fucking horrified by this, but they're not going to do anything because, you know, human rights NGOs, they can't really do anything. They're NGOs. They don't have the power of the state behind them. And as we've seen in the past, as we are continuing to see from what little statistical information we can get out of Gaza right now, like, that's not going to stop Israel from blowing up ambulances and food trucks and stuff. Like, you know, Israel's perfectly fine with killing Americans if it means they get to kill more Palestinians too. You know, we saw that with the World Central Kitchen workers. I know that seems like a long time ago now, but you know, be it them or the numerous battlefield doctors and medics that have gone over there from America and from other countries, you know, it's just not going to stop. And that's because of, like, this insincere whinging from the sidelines by American liberals, conservatives, and centrists about, like, having a right to, Israel has a right to defend itself as it's going on the offense like, it's such an insincere defense at this point. Can't even get decent analysis on how bad the famine death is in Gaza, much less fix the issue. Yeah, and that's part of the thing that makes it keep happening too. Like, Israel knows, the Israeli government knows that they're fucked, right? If they let people in now, they're fucked. Unironically, the political calculation here from Benjamin Netanyahu, from everybody else in Israel, is you have to finish the genocide. Otherwise, you'll get punished for how bad the genocide is. They've already gone in and killed all the record keepers and journalists and medics. They've already completed the scholasticide portion of the genocide. They've already taken out all of the institutions that can be used to gather data and begin to provide like plans to address the issue of life being shit there. If they cave to any sort of pressure right now, humanitarian groups get let in, data collection resumes, and we get a full picture of how bad it really was. And if the international community has the stones to tell Israel to stop in any appreciable capacity, they will also have the stones to follow through after the rebuilding starts. So the solution for Israel is to keep calling their bluff at every turn so that the genocide finishes, and so that after there are no Palestinians left, the world never fully gets wind of like how bad the genocide really was. That's what their objective is right now. Libs get to pretend it's only 40K when it's probably more like 250K. Yeah, and those estimates from the Lancet, I believe the Lancet is the one that said assume for every direct death there are also 5 additional indirect deaths. So 40K, 240K is more likely the number for them if that initial number is 40K. Even that, by their own admissions, like, yeah, 5 indirect deaths for every death is a very low ball estimate. But they said like this is just the estimate we're comfortable providing precisely because it's a low ball estimate. It is at least this much, But yeah, liberals get to very conveniently put their head in the sand over shit like this. What? I got hit by my own red shell. And I got a super high trick. I'm not driving super well right now. Absolutely mortifying issue here. They're also specifically, I should mention as well, because there's so little infrastructure left in Palestine for Israel to bomb, now they're bombing refugee camps. They've already destroyed all the neighborhoods, they've destroyed all the schools, they've destroyed all the functioning hospitals, they've destroyed all of the newsrooms, they've killed most of the journalists. Now they're moving on to the tent cities. The hastily assembled, like, encampments where people are able to scrape by day to day, and where there's currently like polio outbreaks and people dying of starvation. The objective at this point is to kill them all. That's it. And I've been saying this for a while, that like Israel's actions are already genocidal because that's the only place where it can lead. And now we're seeing them, like commit further and further and further to the bit. We're only going to see things get worse as time goes on because, like I said, the United States isn't going to fucking hold Israel to account. We might legitimately just get like 21st century genocide in like a post-internet world, where, as various lawyers have pointed out, as I believe one of the prosecuting attorneys pointed out at the International Court of Justice a little while ago, that this is one of the first genocides where we've literally seen it broadcast from the victims in real time. The Palestinians, the people being killed en masse, are broadcasting their own destruction. Like, the official record keepers have all been killed, but we still have all of the like pedestrian day-to-day record keepers, and the world is still refusing to do anything. Seventh. Bleh. Yeah, look, Professor of International Affairs. Israel's objective, number one, is not Gaza. It is the West Bank. This is the heart of what they say is the biblical land. Yeah, because Jerusalem and such. Adding that Israel aims to expel even more Palestinians. I think the goal at this point is not expulsion. Like expulsion is like acceptable. I think because Israel has been taking prisoners, I think the objective for them is torture and death. Like there is nothing that you can point to that indicates that Israel doesn't want to kill Palestinians, because you could just not drop bombs and not shoot sniper rounds if that were the case. Like, heads would not be rolling if the objective were not to make heads roll. Because Israel, like I said at the onset of this, like I will continue to say, Israel has all the power in this situation when you stack Israel up against Palestine. Like, Palestine isn't even a state. That's what the whole debate and issue was about before this started, is that Israel was an apartheid state and denying Palestine statehood and the ability to determine their own affairs. Israel already had all the power, and now they've decimated whatever was left, whatever Palestine had. There's nothing left. Dang it. Did. I'm really not driving all that well today, partially because of the weather, but partially just because I'm so damn flustered. Sometimes when I read through the news. Shock? No, triple shrooms. What the? I hate when the blue ramp does that. Okay, let's go. I've learned my lesson. No more double shortcut. Only single cut from now on. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. Just like that, I gained 3 spots. Also, to revisit the state of the discourse among liberals in the United States, because I wanna point something out. There are a lot of liberals in the U.S. who who are actually pretty all right on this issue. Like they are really willing to accept the framing. Like, yeah, this is a genocide. Like, Israel's aims here are clearly to either expel or kill every last Palestinian from Gaza, from the West Bank, etc., right? And that's what makes this all the more egregious from the United States' part. The American populace doesn't want this. Like, you can't even make the argument, oh, this is in American interest, this is what the people at home want. No, it isn't, and no, it isn't. Like, there is no angle that you can approach this where there's like a rational justification for American support of Israel right now. Especially when Iran is now reaching out to the United States to try to normalize relations. Now that they've, like, their nuclear program has been advancing and whatever, they've now reached out to, maybe just tease it, but like the nuclear deal is now in the discussion again and stuff. Most Americans support Israel, though. If you poll them on that question, they're going to say yes. Yeah, well, the average American is fucking stupid, right? But like even the massive consent manufacturing machine that exists in America cannot compel people away from the position that, yeah, Israel's committing atrocities and committing a genocide. 80% of Democrats don't just want a ceasefire, they want an arms embargo by name. Like, this is like, there are plenty of people, like, look, we can litigate the specifics of the contradictions between people holding certain positions over an arms embargo, over whether this is genocide, and between that position and people who support Israel as like a state in concept, because like there is overlap there. And yeah, there's a lot of people that hold that contradiction, but like this is clearly irrational when you look at the polling data on like, okay, on regardless of the abstract question, do you support X, Y, or Z country or state? Do you think this thing that is currently happening is bad or is a genocide and whatever? Americans are going to say yes. Even a lot of Republicans, it's by no means a majority or even a plurality, but I think it's something like 30 to 40% of Republicans think that like, oh, I support Israel, but what they've done is just gone way too far or whatever. Like, the Palestinians are being, like they're killing the Palestinians here. Legitimately, the median voter has a more correct opinion on this than any American news outlet or politician. And that is an impressive achievement for news media to be that stupid and that dishonest. You know? It fell apart at the end there, but I drove okay. It's also super frustrating because there's nothing I can do about it. In fact, what I just mentioned about the majority of Americans wanting, like the majority of Democrats and a lot of Americans wanting like an arms embargo, some shit that would have been considered completely off the table 4 months ago. And shit like that. And in fact, probably the majority of Americans agreeing that this is a genocide, and even more agreeing that these are crimes against humanity and atrocities. Like, in the face of all that, what makes me frustrated is that I know it's not going to matter. The public pressure in the long run does matter, but depending on how quickly the leadership isn't going to put that option on the table. Like, and it's possible that Netanyahu and the Israeli government, the IDF, the IOF, whoever, like everybody involved, is going to speed up the genocide to such an extent that it is finished before the public pressure for the arms embargo option to be fully realized. That political pressure by way of public support for a given issue or public opposition to a given issue takes time, and that might be time that the Palestinians don't have. And as much as, like, obviously, being more militant would fix the issue and whatever, like, being more militant and direct with your demands would increase that amount of pressure. The material, like, the circumstances required for people to be like politically very active and militant just are not there in the United States. The people will say like revolutions have been fought over less, which is true, but the reason that nothing in the United States sparks a revolution is just because people are too comfortable. And so that sort of desperation, that political desperation and consciousness never really arises. And if it doesn't arise over things that do affect people directly, it's sure as shit not going to arise over this. Which fucking sucks, but look, I don't want to lie to anybody by making this seem more optimistic or like it has any sort of clean resolution, because I don't think it does. And you guys know that I usually try to inject enough, like, I try to inject some analysis into politics that draws people away from doomering and whatever. And I still don't think that you should doomer anything. This shit happens. Israeli economy's fucked and lots of Zionists are leaving. It's not all bad. That's true. You know what? I should mention that. I mentioned that usually I want to inject some sort of silver lining, some wedge that could make the issue better. so that people don't come away with feeling like, man, now I'm just depressed. That is true. I can't believe I didn't upload the video segment on that, because I really should have. Whatever. It's let bygones be bygones. Israel has fucking destroyed their own economy over this. I've mentioned that a lot of the support for this genocide is irrational. That applies to Israel as well. The United States supporting Israel is irrationally motivated, and Israel committing this genocide is also irrationally motivated. It doesn't come from a place of material motivation. Sure, there is potential material gain in the acquisition of land on which people can live theoretically, but that's a very outdated economic model, because Israel was a liberal capitalist state, and still is, as much as it's also an ethno state and a fascist, sort of colonial state. It is also liberal capitalist, and having a war economy, being in a state of war all the time, is really fucking bad for business, you know? And yeah, that, I think I've read articles before to confirm that, like, Israel's economy is in a really bad spot. They use the typical, like, stock market index, whatever, but, like, general economic activity has really slowed down there. Wages are kind of stagnating. Businesses are having a hard time staying open. Thank you for some of the statistics. I'll have to, that gives me something to look up to sort of corroborate it later. 46,000 businesses went bankrupt in the last year in Israel. Jesus, that's a lot. The port of Eliat is closed. The Yemenis have essentially won a war against you've shut down shipping in the Red Sea. I'm gonna have to double check that bit about the Red Sea, because as far as I know, like, there's raids happening, but the United States military isn't gonna be, like, completely, like, invalidated or whatever by Yemeni pirates for the most part. Otherwise, I'll try to find that some info on this later. Look, I think the best way to analyze this is through the sources that would have incentives to, like, say otherwise. The article I saw and remember reading about the Israeli economy tanking was from the Jerusalem Post. Like, Israel knows that they're fucking cooked, you know? And yeah, obviously, Red Sea shipping has taken a hit. I don't feel like I need to exaggerate the scope of any of this. I think it's just taken a hit. I don't think there's, like, they've won a trade war or anything. It's just, like, there's periodic raids, and it's very annoying from an economic perspective. But yeah, the fact that that's happening, there's some major economic consequences to what Israel is doing, which includes, retaliation to its neighbors and like, well, direct consequences at home. Like you said, the businesses shutting down, people being out of work, and the sort of wages and quality of life declining are what I am mainly thinking of here. Let me see if I can find that Jerusalem Post article about the economy doing so bad. Where is it? Or maybe was it Times of Israel or Jerusalem Post? I get the two of those mixed up. Yeah, it was Times of Israel, not Jerusalem Post. That's my B. Here we go. We'll start reading from this. Now, obviously, it's biased as fuck, but that's what makes it more interesting to me, because this is stuff that they're even willing to admit to. In April, the USA offered to end the embargo on the Houthis. The Houthis told them to get fucked. Shipping's largely shut down in the Red Sea. The USA was withdrawn its navy with only occasional protected convoy operations, but not general patrolling nor freedom of navigation exercises. Okay, interesting. Yeah, in that case, maybe, maybe the U.S. has been like, all right, fine, fuck it, whatever, not worth it. In which case, maybe look, I'll have to look into that further on my own. That's not something I feel comfortable reading up on the fly. Give me that box. Okay, so you got hit by one of those. gonna try to hold on to second as much as I can. The U.S. isn't even affected by the Red Sea blockade. Your shit comes from the Atlantic or Pacific. Very few things are gonna get through the Suez to the USA. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's probably why the U.S. backed out then. They're probably like, you know, like I said, they were probably like, it's not worth it. You know, like, we don't get our shit from there, so who cares? Almost. Almost got that guy. But now I'm in third with no item, which is not a good position for me to be in. I have a mushroom. Once this race is done, I'll start reading from that Jerusalem Post article. Because, you know, it's always good to be like, hey, don't take it from me, take it from the fucking, you know, the country whose economy is directly being affected and whatever. Oops. Ow. Fourth, he thinks? Yeah. Okay. Times of Israel. I've read through this before for a video segment I didn't end up making, but I feel it's relevant to bring it back up now. Israel's economy seems to be doing okay. Keep in mind, this is from almost 2 months ago now. Like, more than a month and a half ago, so things may have gotten worse. But is everything as it seems? How Israel's war in Gaza has affected employment, quality of life, and private and public spending, and how expressed in the data. This might be like, oh, how this is expressed in the data. Okay, thank you. Great. Seems like the article isn't quite loading properly on half screen. This is from July 2nd, so like I said, a while ago. Economists are warning of a deep crisis in Israel, or even a collapse, and some international credit rating companies have already lowered the country's rating and forecast. Let me get to some of the really disastrous numbers here. Oh yeah, here we go. They attribute as contributing factors to this, obviously, the genocide, although they call it a war. Mobilization of IDF reservists, shaky international relations. Various countries have cut ties with Israel. Important economic countries as well. Vast public expenditure, the way the government is managed, and the ostensible attempts to undercut the basis of democratic rule. Yeah, don't forget as well, like, as much as Israel was already like an apartheid state and shit, Netanyahu wanted to make it worse by turning it into an apartheid state where there's also no elections. You know? But, you know, funnily enough, people were kind of okay with that part. You know? You know, trick off that? Huh. This version of this track is way harder than the other one. I'm not going to have much success reading and driving at the same time. Well, no. Okay, well, now I can scroll down a little bit. I got the startup boost without looking. Huh. No, what? Wheelie lock. Okay. Cool. I know where I want to use these mushrooms, but I know the shock could happen, like, basically at any moment, and they speak of the devil. Cool. Alright, give me 7th place box. Thank you. 1 mushroom? Dang. Well, there's a mushroom. That gave me quite a bit of time. box. Yeah, yes. Nice try. What version of Mario Kart Wii is it? Mario Kart is this that you play? This is Mario Kart Wii. This is a mod pack called Retro Rewind. It includes a lot of well, all the tracks from other Mario Kart games. Okay. So this article is saying here the exchange rate between the shekel and the dollar has fallen. This is one of the useful economic metrics in terms of inflation. Play that on Wii or emulator. I play it on my Wii U. Here we go. Unemployment risen, quality of life worsened. Expanded unemployment rate, which includes people who were put on unpaid leave during the war and people who were fired or who have stopped being eligible for unemployment benefits, stood at around 5.3% in May. That's May of this year. Oh yeah, I guess that's implied after the genocide started, properly. Expanded unemployment rate was at 4.2% in September, jumping to 9.6% in October. It reached 10.4% when including parents who stayed at home with their kids. More than 400,000 people. So it has since decreased after October, I believe. There were some really... here we go. Here's the really, really fucking disastrous numbers. Things are not as positive as they may seem. The GDP jumped in the first quarter of 2024 because it shrank in the last quarter of 2023. According to the CBS's data, I think this is like Israel's statistics office. GDP in the last quarter of 2023 shrank by 19%. That's 19% GDP shrinkage in 1 quarter of a year. Not in a year, in 1 quarter of a year. Which is, like, economically disastrous. GDP per capita in 2023 practically did not change compared to 2022. This is bound to have some really bad effects, though. Oops. That GDP number, for me, the GDP number was like one of the big kickers on like this war is this, well, it is in some senses, it is a war because there's a war effort being put behind it. It's just a war on Palestinian children as opposed to a war against an opposing nation state that also has a military. This has some disastrous implications economically speaking, which is why I say this is being irrationally motivated. Growth began again at the beginning of 2024 because of a rise in consumerism. Okay. Private spending rose in the first quarter of 2024 by some 26.3% after it came to a near halt at the beginning of the war, falling in the last quarter of 2023 by some 27%. So consumer activity, consumer spending and stuff fell at the end of 2023 by 27% and then only rose by 26%. That number did not fully recover. Like this is a sustained hit. Export of goods and services from Israel fell by 18% in the last quarter of 2023, and throughout the year, exports fell by 2%. This is because of the war's effect on the tech sector and agriculture. BDO's chief economist says that Israel is heading towards a very deep recession. You'd expect some deferred spending to see a higher number in the recovery quarter. What's up? Oh, yeah. I think I get what you're saying. Maybe. Let me get this box and then... Oh no, target shop. Yeah, look, according to this chief economist guy, the army is acting as a shock absorber that's keeping businesses alive because, like, the army has to move, like, move shit around and do all sorts of logistics and shit, even, you know, for a genocide or whatever. That's kind of how, like, modern military equipment and expenditures work. You have to deal a lot in logistics. If spending went down for a quarter due to fears people should have more disposable income the quarter after when things are more normal. Oh, yeah. That's right. But they didn't, I think. So that indicates that it's a pretty real economic hit that they're taking. Instead of productive economic activity, the army is acting as a shock absorber instead of productive economic activity. This quote from Chen Herzog. Businesses are operating at low productivity because their employees are on reserve duty. Some are even closed, but the employees continue to be paid by the defense ministry. So this is why everybody isn't broke, is because a lot of people are getting defense industry paychecks. Or defense ministry. I think I said industry. Thanks to the payments from the army and financial aid from the government, people still have money to spend, so public spending recovered in the first quarter, and the sense of wealth returned. Added to this, a massive governmental buying of weaponry and military equipment from businesses. However, exports, investments, and businesses' production has shrunk significantly. Oh, let's go. With the blooper in my face, I still got the wall glitch. Nobody made the Sandhawk. This is what people usually do, right? Yeah. Floppy ultra shortcut, but I got it all the same. No, the one time I needed to land it and I fucked it up. Okay. Don't mind if I do. Okay. The market has no way of funding the accumulating government expenses. All the indicators show that we are heading toward deep recession and are actually already in recession. Supplies recovering after a significant reduction in the scope of reserve mobilization. Let's see. We estimate that negative consumer sentiment will continue to harm demand. The demand for incoming tourism has plummeted. Oh no, woe is Israel. experience from recent security events shows that this is expected to continue. This guy's projecting a recovery by 2025 in the unemployment numbers. Let's see. Is there anything else in this article? No. Wait. Expanding the war to the northern front is expected to have a significant negative economic influence. So Israel doing all this saber rattling is continuing to negatively impact them. There we go. Okay, so that's what I'm interested in from that economist. I also I talked about this a couple times on other streams where there have been a lot of countries, particularly in Latin America, that have cut all ties with Israel, both diplomatic and economic, which is important, not just because like that's based in red pilled and shit, but also because countries in Latin America are, you know, they have some important resources in them, like resources that developed countries really need. Stuff for energy, stuff for electronics, you know, things like that. The reason that, you know, coups happen in Latin American countries so frequently, why there's a lot of like foreign interference there, is because they have very valuable resources that are economically important. And those are the countries that have been cutting ties with Israel. This is not going to just go away. I think that the way that these economists predict, or economists, not going to predict that it will, at least not completely, you know. For example, I think Bolivia has cut all ties with Israel. Bolivia is a very important supplier of lithium for batteries. Israel, a first world country, if you measure by like income and standard of living metrics, they need that lithium for batteries, for electronics, and for manufacturing purposes and stuff like that. That's lithium they're not getting anymore. Yeah, and the other major one that I wanted to mention, I don't know exactly what Nicaragua produces that's like of import, but Colombia it was, I think, Israel's biggest coal supplier. Israel still relies a pretty large amount on coal energy, and they're not getting that anymore. They have to get their energy from elsewhere, which means that they're gonna incur really, really significant logistics costs and stuff like that. So those two countries, for me, are like examples of how this is really negatively impacting Israel, and why this is an example of like irrational decision making, and why like it's so confounding that like the degree to which they just fucking hate Palestinians, you know? They're willing to throw out their economy just so they can also throw out the Palestinians with it. And by throw out, I mean like kill. Yeah, look. This let's see. This is, they refer to this person as a source. This is an investor. This is part of the capital class of Israel. These are the people whose interests like primarily dictate politics outside of, well, you know, it's not about hating Palestinians, it's just the nature of conflict between settlers and indigenous peoples. No, it is about hating Palestinians. Israel has a very active ethnic rage towards Arabs and Palestinians in particular, because they are driven by an intense sense of, yes, colonialist, but like very religiously influenced ethno-nationalism. It's the same shit that the United States did with the natives, except Israel is way, way, way more active, and like they're moving a lot quicker. Basically, the United States, the colonization of the United States was not as fast as the colonization of Palestine by Israel. And that's because of, well, a number of factors, part of it being technology. But these two things are not like exclusive. It's not just, oh, conflict between settlers and indigenous peoples. The USA basically already eliminated its indigenous population. Yeah, and that's like that was accompanied by all sorts of like dehumanization and shit. Like that didn't happen on its own. Like the if you look back at the historical record of politicians who were spearheading the efforts of what they called Indian removal and shit like that, all the generals that were involved in like giant massacres of tribes out west, they didn't just kind of do that because, oh, you know, I believe in the, like, I don't know, fucking, it wasn't this like calculated, rational political move, right? This was about, more than anything, hating the Native Americans and like believing that they stood in the way of some divinely ordained destiny. And that's what made it a genocide, is that there was a lot of genocidal intent to back up those actions. You know, it's, there's like, you can only have an accidental genocide, or a genocide that is unmotivated by hatred, in like the most strictest of vacuums, you know. In the real world, this shit is always motivated by ethnic hatred. Not about the indigenous people, who they are, wherever the settlers go. It's always the same shit. I mean, what? It's not about the indigenous people for who they are. No, it is. It is about that. Because their mere existence, the fact that they exist on that land, that is part of who they are. Is that, like, people live where they live, and you know, that's part of people's identity. Such is the nature of, you know, that. Always the same shit. It is always the same shit. Like, same shit, different day. Yeah. Look, I think, like, we're probably just saying the same thing with different words, right? Like, this is irrationally motivated. Any gains that Israel could theoretically get to its, like, you know, materially speaking, are vastly outweighed by the consequences they're incurring right now. And like, the colonialism is not by any stretch an efficient economic project. There is always that component of irrational disdain and hatred for the people that you are subjugating in that exchange, right? You don't accidentally have, you know, I'll go back to this again. You can't accidentally have a genocide of a like ethnic minority. That doesn't happen by accident. It can't happen by accident. Oh, I hate 200cc. I see. We both got fucked. No! I almost had the right angle there. Okay. I'm leaving this room. I can't stand 200cc. Look, the point I'm trying to hammer home here is that, like, none of this is rationally motivated. This is not some cold calculated move from the, like, for the benefit of Israel and whatever. Like, that's not the kind of politics being engaged in here. The kind of politics being engaged in is basically the politics of, like, doomsday prophesizing, where, like, it's this is fascism. This is the irrationality of fascism. The Israeli government, the state, or like Israel, as a set of like institutions and political narratives, wants to bring about a heaven on earth whereby the degenerates need to first be purged from society. Who are the degenerates? Palestinians and also queer people. Israel not known for liking gay people. The heaven on earth is the state of greater Israel and the sort of conquest of their Arab neighbors, and of course, the purging of their Arab neighbors from that land. You don't like, and this has directly run up against the Israeli economy, because in order to do that, you have to sabotage all of your fucking economic and diplomatic relationships with your neighbors. You have to like gouge out a large portion of your domestic economy to basically have a like war mobilization, and you need to Israel ends up like doing the most heinous shit that you can imagine, that and because it's a war effort, economy suffers, etc., etc. Look, this isn't going to be a segment. I don't feel too much pressure to be like super hyper coherent, but like I think I've said the same thing enough times. This shit is bad from every possible angle. You could be as charitable as you want towards the existence of the state of Israel and whatever. This is even bad for that. Not that I care to make that argument, because I don't think Israel should exist at all. But look, let's just move on. This has already been one of the biggest failures of Kamala Harris' campaign, too. I'm going to turn this around to U.S. politics. I don't know, I know why the Democrats don't want to learn any lessons, because they're, like, fucking smarmy-ass liberals who don't believe that there are any lessons to be learned, because this is the end of history, nothing different is possible, etc., etc. But, like, it continues to confound me how they believe it's like a good strategy to basically take a page out of Joe Biden's book in like unprompted, not compelled by anything, they just say, we support Israel's right to exist. Like, motherfucker, thank you for alienating another 1,000 Arab voters every time you open your mouth, and not just Arab voters either, just people in general. Bump me into the wall. At least it's 150. Alright, comeback time. I'm saving these. Oh boy. I see. Okay. No. Okay. That's fine, it's fine. What's up? Oh, okay. Ow. Fuck. I think I want to chain these. Yeah. I'm kind of relying on the assumption that there's not going to be a shock in the next 15 seconds. I'm going to do this. What the? I can't trick off that? You kidding me? Okay, well, I got the scrub dodge. Cool. Seventh? Yeah. Oh, hey, speaking of the failures of American liberals, who's ready for me to talk shit about the Democratic Party again? I've mentioned before that the Republicans basically at this point have zero chance of winning the 2024 presidential election, assuming they play by the rules, which they won't, but that's another discussion. The fact of the matter is the spotlight is now on the Democrats. They are the only realistic contenders for winning the election, even when you account for the Electoral College. And they're falling into this pattern again, the Democrats, where they abandon all the progressivism and moderate their language the closer they get to the general election, which is where it would matter more. Obviously, like, there are certain lines that resonate with the base more, but a lot of progressive talking points also resonate with the general public, and the Democrats just seem to kind of abandon them whenever the election comes around. It could be on wages, it could be on immigration, it could be on fucking what else? They like, especially on international policy, that they seldom even make progressive commitments in the first place. But the point is, there's a few key areas, healthcare as well. Like they'll just, a lot of people meme about how politicians make big promises, then get elected, and then break those promises. Democrats don't even wait to get elected. They'll break those promises on the campaign trail still. So why do they do that? Well, it's because they're stupid. That's mostly why. But I want to talk a little bit about, like, the specific, like, some of the details of those flaws. And how to appeal to the group of people that the Democrats think they appeal to when they're engaging in that kind of language. Now, it's possible that they're not actually... They're just kind of speaking out of both sides of their mouth when they refer to that group, because I know that who Democrats actually care about appealing to, and when I say Democrats, I mean politicians, the campaign team and whatever, who they care about appealing to are the donors, because this is capitalism, the owning class. When I say they own everything, that includes politics too. The Fuck, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Jesus Christ, I hate weather like this. It makes my brain so scrambled. The Democrats have a habit of falling into that pattern, and so they have recently. After the DNC. In fact, we saw some of this at the DNC in the latter stages, where the Democrats decided to just basically do the old switcheroo, become centrists and whatnot. Which is undoubtedly going to actually lose them support in the general election. And in fact, they even gave the game away. I remember somebody, I think it was Nancy Pelosi, in an interview saying, "We don't govern by the polls, we govern from the center." So they clearly don't care about what the majority of Americans want. But yet they constantly appeal to this mythical demographic, the fucking rural working class voter, and they mean white. Everybody, when they say rural working class Americans, they mean white rural working class Americans. But that's part of the game of American politics. Both parties have some baked in racism. With the Republicans, it's blatant. With the Democrats, it's latent. But this demographic, believe it or not, does exist. I saw a video about this recently from More Perfect Union. Shout outs to them. I don't want to, watch that video. I think More Perfect Union segments have taught me that, like, usually it's better to do content about stuff that's a little bit more disagreeable, or just have myself as a talking head in a vacuum with like the gameplay and whatnot. how you appeal to these people, there's a bit of strategy that you have to employ. Yes, so like, maybe I'll appeal a little bit to the 5D chess brains that people who live in the DC area think that they have, or the libs broadly think that they have. But a lot of the online lefties are actually correct when they say you have to run to the left, because you should govern by the polling. You have to appeal to people's you have to meet people where they are. That, it doesn't sound like it means very much, but like, you can't just do the whole thing where you moderate your language, because now you've failed to gain anybody's trust, really. And you've just made yourself look more like the dishonest politician that people already suspect you to be, right? Tim Walz is actually really good at this. I'm sure I'll have more criticism of Tim Walz when he gets into office, and obviously, like, in the theory side of things, yes, he is a liberal still and stuff like that. But if you guys have seen the interviews of him where he's talking about left policy, and he's open about it being very left of center, but he refers to it more as a matter of like neighborliness and being a good neighbor, being a good member of your community and whatever. That is the kind of framing that you adopt, like, and you basically, you get 50 state sweep, Huey Long to welcome back American Juan Perón. Democrats never lose another election again, but they're not willing to do that. And that's because of some of the terminal brain worms that the Democrats suffer from, that Tim Walz doesn't suffer from, at least not nearly as much. One of them is the sort of liberal abstemiousness and refusal to use power where you have it. In fact, that's a really big one. Part of the reason that rural America has ceded so much, has been captured so thoroughly by the Republicans, is because Democrats have put in zero effort to alter the discourse in any way around sort of less educated working class politics. The politics of people who live out in the sticks in West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee, in Appalachia and those kinds of areas. I've mentioned this several times before, there's a consent manufacturing machine. Media outlets, pundits, politicians that go on those media outlets, news stories, even YouTube videos are a part of this. But like, all of these things craft a narrative, and that narrative is like the Overton window of politics that is set by media institutions. And the Overton window is pretty skewed to the right on a lot of things. And that's because Republicans are the only party that have been meaningfully engaging in narrative setting. In order to set the narrative, politicians, they get their marching orders, whatever. They go on the media outlets and they take a very proactive approach to framing an issue, to discussing an issue, basically to narrativizing an issue, saying, this is what's wrong, this is what we have to do to fix it, we will fix it, right? Simple 1, 2, 3. And you deliver it sort of with punchy lines, you deliver it with pizzazz, and honestly, you have to also deliver it with a performative disdain of the other side of the political aisle, because, in order to paint yourself in opposition to somebody else in politics, you have to establish that what you want is good for the country, therefore what they want isn't. That's just how politics works. You can be more or less performative about it, but if you're not willing to do that, like the Democrats aren't, then you don't have any good hold over political messaging. A lot of the people out in the sticks are pro-union, are anti-billionaire, are like, there's a degree of class consciousness and the awareness of theoretically what their interests are that is genuinely very surprising to me. And that makes it surprising probably to a lot of people that they vote for Republicans. It's not because Republicans serve those interests. It's because Republicans are the only people that are going on TV and acting like they're talking to you as like a matter of well, here's the problem, here's what we have to do to fix it. Democrats' whole shtick, because they're centrist liberals, at least the leadership for sure is, and that's the direction they seem very intent on keeping the party in. they don't believe that any problem fundamentally exists. They're incapable of critiquing the system because they are the system. But they're also incapable of using the system because part of their ideology revolves around leaving the system as it is, untouched. They have an allergy to using the power that they have. It's one of the things that makes me say that, like, Democrats act as though they're an NGO as opposed to one of the major political parties in the most powerful country in the history of the world, right? Like, they're acting as though they're just small beans. Ooh. Meanwhile, you have the authority to sign a piece of paper that will, like, kill millions or something like that. So that's not me saying you have to give a Lenin speech on TV to galvanize rural voters. That's not what's going to resonate with people. But if you do what Tim Waltz does, if you talk about, let's say, infrastructure issues from a perspective of a very rural personal experience, you tie that into, this is why we need to invest in infrastructure. This is why we need unions. This is why we need X, Y, and Z, because, I don't know, fucking, your basement flooding and all the walls falling apart, that's the problem. Here's what we got to do to fix it. In order to get the, construction companies out there, you got to invest in those construction companies. That means you need stable jobs. You need union jobs. You need the workers to have representation. You can't have the fat cats taking all the money because then nothing gets done. Boom. I have now done more. I have now said more in the way of framing an issue from the left in a way that would appeal to rural Americans than Democrats are willing to do on network television, because all they're willing to do is go out there and be like, oh yeah, we're Republicans, but like not, a lot of the issues that Democrats will talk in a narrativized way about are issues that the Republicans got to first. They are they are a very passive agent. Or actually, they're not a passive agent. They're just passive. They're not an agent, because being an agent means you are active. You act. That's the root word of agent. They've really fumbled the sort of media game. For a little while, they had a decent grasp of it in terms of, like, online campaigning and agenda setting with young people. Like, all the campaign ads that were like, Trump wants to give tax cuts to fat cats and we want to, like, bring back unions. That shit works. That rhetoric works. In fact, it works with the very rural Americans who, like, voted for fucking Andy Bashir and some of the, like, the surprisingly to the left Democratic politicians at a state level, and then voted for Donald Trump at the federal level. It's because there's a degree of populism. There's a degree of, like, framing the narrative, being an active participant in the discussion, that Democrats at the federal level just aren't willing to engage in, because that would mean flexing their political muscles. That would mean using power. And you can't do that, because otherwise Democrats are afraid that they might turn into authoritarians or something, because they were like, all right, here's what we got to say on the news one time, I guess. And also, it doesn't help that Democrats give up on rural areas too, in another way. This I've sort of approached this from a socioeconomic, like, discourse perspective. From a strictly political office and campaigning perspective, Democrats don't run people in small towns like that. Like, all the people that get into politics there, they would be Republicans or independents or whatever. It seems like Democrats have really abandoned local politics in a lot of ways, at least in the areas where they are very firmly losing. The Republicans haven't. I live in an area where, like, Republicans are very active in local politics, but they call themselves Democrats. They always run candidates on the Republican side. They're very active in trying to pull the Democratic Party to the right, which unfortunately that is a strategy that works. Pushing the Republicans to the left isn't, but pulling the Democrats right is. And it's created a lot of discourse. Republicans running in areas where they're, like, not serious contenders creates discourse. It at least keeps the, like, kind of the conservative movement to some degree alive, you know? But that's a movement with bad politics. If you can do that with a movement with bad politics, a movement with way better politics should also be able to do that. You know, think of all the times that states like fucking Kansas have voted in favor of protecting abortion when they'll vote for Republicans by like a 70-30 or 80-20 margin at all, like all the levels of government. It's because Democrats just aren't putting in any effort. You know? So again, basically what I'm saying, we need Huey Long too. We need unions in the South. We need to clone Andy Bashir so he can be in several different states at the same time. And for fuck's sake, the Democrats need to engage in active framing of the issues they're talking about that aren't just, hey, we're like Republicans, but like moderate. Isn't that cool? No, actually, it's not. Thank you. That's what got us into this mess. It's not what's going to get us out of this mess. And by this mess, I mean like massive isolation, alienation, shit-ass pay, stagnant wages, upward concentration of wealth, blah, blah, blah. You guys know the spiel. There's so much that they could be accomplishing that they're choosing not to. Such as the ideological flaw with the Democratic Party. At the risk of rambling, though, I'm going to stop. I didn't have time to get out of the way. Alright, that was okay. No, that's why I don't do that strategy. There's such a risk of falling off there. Alright. This item. I just spammed it. I dodged that guy in a bullet, so. Lucky him, I guess. Racing really bad right now. This section, I think. I didn't get an item. Alright. Not getting an item here, but I fucked up the sand hop. I'm really having a rough time of it today in the Mario Kart Wii lobby here. I'm gonna drive through this. No, dude, come on. My luck sucks so bad right now. All right. You know what? I'm gonna vote for Dry Ruins again until it gets picked. Or not until it gets picked. I might do like one more race. I'm gonna vote for Dry Ruins again because if it gets picked, then I want to I want the last race to be indicative that I can drive. Although again, this could have to do with the weather. It's crazy that like that's always my go-to, but like whenever it's gloomy and wet and rainy outside, my brain gets so scrambled that like my basic functioning gets affected. That's part of having seasonal depression, I guess. I literally like have a harder time doing anything. So that makes this harder too. Vote. Where are the Mario Kart Wii tracks? Here they are. Repick. I'm losing 20 points in the clan war, but I don't care. Let's go. Cross. Bowser Castle 1. Okay. This track is actually pretty good for mock bike. It's got a couple tight turns in the middle. Or actually at the end. Nice. Ah, damn it. Got bumped off. Trick there. Give me this box. Thank you. What? Bullshit. So you're not supposed to trick off those. Why did you throw that green backwards in 7th place? I'm gonna use this Mega Mushroom. I feel like there's a lot of hectic shit that can happen here. Obviously, I'm part of that, but... There we go. See, I'm gaining a lot of time on these guys. Oh! Not quite. One mushroom. I'm gonna use this. Damn it. Well, that's a good spot for me to get shocked. Not a bad race. I think I can do better, though. I might stick around for one more. That's a really short and hectic track. And I even made a lot more mistakes than I'm typically comfortable with. I don't want that to be like the note that I ended on, I think. One more. Famous last words, I know, but you know, we'll see how that shakes out. I think there was one other thing. Oh, yeah, it was kind of related. I'll go to this CBS article. I fucking hate the framing. Hey, speaking of framing, CBS and mainstream news outlets have now, they've coalesced into the Republican fold, more or less, by enabling fascist politic and sort of pro-insurrection politic, you know? Fascism is funded by capital, etc., etc. CBS headline reads, New Republican-backed Georgia rules risk undermining election certification, critics say, which is the softest possible fucking... This is the softest possible, like, softball pitch to say, yeah, Republican officials in Georgia are going to do a coup d'etat in the 2024 election. You know, there's a sort of pacifization of the motives at play here, or of the things at play here, with saying like, oh, these new rules in this body could undermine this, paying no mind to the fact that it was Republicans who set that shit up on purpose. You know, like, we're just gonna pretend that this was something that kind of dropped out of the ether in front of us for no fault of anybody. And then also curbing it with, like, the critics say is a strong implication that, like, well, this might not be true, we don't know, but, you know, critics and detractors are saying this. So, like, taking away from the credibility of the claim while also softening the claim to be as favorable to Republicans as possible. This is a very intentional thing, believe you me. But regardless, the content of the article refers to the same events that I want to talk about, which is that in Georgia, there are a number of Republicans on the state election board who are planning to do a coup d'etat in the state of Georgia if Trump loses the vote there. Basically, you know, if the popular vote goes for Kamala Harris, then these Republican election officials will simply refuse to certify the election and certify it in favor of Trump rather than Kamala Harris, so that the electoral votes for Georgia will go to him instead of her, thereby nullifying the popular vote at the state level and potentially winning Trump the election by virtue of they fucking cheated. Uh, you know, they've been lining this up in a number of swing states. It's not just Georgia. We know that this is the plan on Republicans' end, right? But this is one of those examples of Democrats just not being an agent in framing the discussion, because they are not talking about this. Democrats aren't talking about this. They're not going to do anything about this either. Like, it would be, in my view, it would be a bigger leap to say that Democrats would try to stop this coup than to say that this coup might succeed. Like, one of those two things is like unlikely but possible, and the other one is basically impossible. Yeah, that wasn't a very good race either. Do another one. Yeah, Trump name dropped he name dropped 3 officials of the Georgia State Election Board. And the article goes to basically outline what I just said, but the intent is still there from the headline alone. Understand that, like, most people aren't going to read the news article. Everybody's going to see the headline. So that's what news outlets are trying to concentrate their messaging into. And the fact that news outlets are trying to basically, as well as fact checkers have been doing this, have been trying to cast Trump in as favorable a light as possible, indicates to me that they are, like, the businesses are now folding in with the Republicans. And like I said, because of that, the terminal bug of ideological liberalism, and also because the Democrats are also a party of business, Democrats ain't gonna do shit. They either don't know that they have the power to do something, which is profoundly stupid, or they're unwilling to use that power because it would be, like, mean and against the spirit of America or something, which is very idealist of them and also stupid. As a Marxist, the idealist is the worst thing I can call somebody. That it's devastating. They're devastated right now. Try to get a box, but oh, that's not a mushroom. Okay. Oh, that was only lap 1. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. This track is pretty long, which is good for me. Okay. God dang it. That's always annoying, but I know I do it too, and it's perfectly rational to do it. It's not like one of those things where it's like, you had no reason to do that. They have plenty of reason. Oh, what happened to that guy? He just flew off the edge there. What's up, Ivan? And third going into lap 3, yeah? I need an item. Perfect. It's a good item to have. Okay, I was gonna say, I'm gonna get rid of that red shell, because I think there's an item set coming up at some point. Not here, I think it's next ramp. Yeah, it's right here. I think you can do shroomless? I wonder. Fake item box in third. Well, either way, decent placement, good driving. I'm comfortable ending the stream on that race. Okay. Quick game. Again, this is a shorter stream than my usual 2 hours, but look, weather is not permitting to my mood right now. My brain is super scrambled. I feel like I might even talk about some of the stuff I talked about this time next time. I just want to come back to it in a better headspace, right? So I can hit some of the major points without getting lost in the weeds. That's one of the things I find happens whenever the weather's really bad. My ADD, or like ADHD, gets worse, and I have a harder time drawing like very solid narrative lines from point to point. Does that make sense? Like, I get lost, like I said, I get lost in the weeds. And when there's like a big point that I want to make, it's hard for me to make it because it's very easy to meander and get, you know, very spread out on tangents. But regardless, hopefully that's something that'll be resolved by the next time I see you guys. Thanks for tuning in. I will now not raid somebody because nobody that I watch really is live. Collaboration. I wonder if I'll ever use that. No raid today. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I will be more coherent next time. Be sure to tune in for that one.